Please join us on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he's our moderator for this panel discussion. I would request our panelist, Dr. Triveni Singh, Additional SP Special Task Force UP Police, to please join us for the panel discussion. Welcome, sir. I request Mr. Henry, Senior Marketing Manager, to please join us. Welcome, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Henry's Senior Marketing Manager, APAC, Entrust Datacard. And I request Mr. Manoj, Kaushik, IPS Additional Director, FIU, to please join us. Welcome, sir. I request Mr. Krishnan to please start with the panel discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think we would have seen in the morning sessions how the threat vector is increasing in terms of the cyber frauds. And to see some of the reports that's been given to you in the handouts, it's supposedly $25 billion per year. That's the kind of number we're looking at. I don't know how they've got that number, but it looks like it's an extrapolated number, but still it's a huge number. And mind you, most of the online frauds do not get reported, and that's the scary part. I'm from the industry, so I'm the Chief Risk Officer in the midst of risk. And in the panel, I'm really privileged to have very distinguished people. I've got a police person, very senior person in the right. I've got a regulator in the extreme left, and of course, noted service provider, and from the industry in the immediate left. So, very interesting, and I'm probably the victim in the middle from the corporate world where we get it by so many frauds. So most of the corporates, what they do is they actually settle the fraud because of reputation loss, or financial loss, or cost reasons, or practical reasons. And that's why it's unreported. But the trend is changing as we speak, and I think people are more outspoken now. I could see there is a lot of cooperation, collaboration that's slowly being set. I'm from the insurance industry, and as we speak again, in the life insurance industry space, we're setting up a fraud repository wherein we connect with various players in terms of frauds that have been perpetrated, claims that are made at various stages of the cycle. And in fact, we've ensured that now we would try and do that at the initial stage itself. So if somebody has a fresh business, just has to go to the repository and see the name of the prospective customer is figuring there. And then probably would get the history of fraud perpetrated by that customer and could save. Mind you, life insurance industry space alone, insurance industry space alone is 300 billion rupee kind of figure we are looking at. And that's a fraud. An online fraud would be a part of portion of that. The online business, mind you, is increasing as we speak every day. And year on year, it's registering a growth. Although it's not much in the life insurance industry space, but it's going to pick up as it has picked up in the banking and the mutual fund space. So that's the trend. And we found that 10% of frauds could be saved had we shared data, had we collaborated amongst the players, and this has been our experience. Even internationally, I believe 5% is saved if there is collaboration. And that's the figures from Vietnam and so many other countries, even in the less so developed and the advanced countries also. This is not insurance, it's about cyber fraud industry. So with that, I would ask my co-panelist, Mr. Triveni Singh is in the right. He's from UP Cyber Wing and very active person in this space. And even as life insurance industry player, we have already in touch with him. So even though I'm in Mumbai, we're in touch with him, and he's actively connected. So, and to the immediate left is Mr. Leung. He's from APAC region, Senior Manager Marketing, very senior person. And he would take us through the intricacies of what is happening on the online space, especially in the cyber fraud mitigation space. And to my extreme left is Mr. Manoj, Kaushik from the regulator FIU Financial Intelligence Unit. And you would share some insights internationally, what is the trend from FATF, Financial Action Task Force, and what's happening in India in particular. So I immediately go to my extreme right to hand over to Mr. Triveni Singh for a short introduction of what he is doing, and so will be the other panelists. So I hand over to Mr. Triveni Singh.
Thank you. I'm talking about cybercrime, the magnitude of cybercrime, you know. In last 6 months, we conducted 6 raids in NCR region, and we seized about 10 to 12 call centers, arrested 302 boys and girls. They were running fake call centers. These are the major problem area nowadays that banking industry and insurance industry are facing. But recently there has been a rise in OTP fraud, banking frauds. We are getting lots of cases related with OTP fraud, you know. Then apart from social networking sites fraud, like they create fake profile on the social media. We are getting cases related with data theft. And even one case I am investigating right now is corporate spying, you know. So all kinds of DDoS attack. So all kinds of crime, cybercrime cases are being reported to the police. In UP, I would like to quote the figure. As on date, 1,700 cybercrime cases have been reported this year only. So there is huge, you know, exponential growth in cybercrime cases being registered. And I would like to tell that it's just a tip of the iceberg. The magnitude is more, many times more. You know. Because corporate sector, they are not going to the police station. Once the data breach happens at the corporate sector, they never report to the police station. In most of the cases, even individual victims, they are not going to the police station. So my opinion is that there are against every registered case, there are 10 unregistered cases. This is the magnitude.
So that's great, and you get a flavor of what's happening. OTP is one-time password. So what happens is the fraudsters get a handle on the mobile of the prospective customer or customer, and then perpetrate the fraud. So Mr. Henry would now take us through what are the current happening or trends in the online space.
Hey, thank you, sir. So again, my name is Henry Leung, representing the industry from Entrust Datacard, which is a global secure identifications solution provider, basically covering citizen, consumer, and also enterprise arena with our wide array of solutions on InfoSec and also payment applications. So basically, let me start by saying it's definitely an exciting time as global macro trends is showing a rapidly changing world towards digital identities, which is quite relevant to the DSCI conference here. Today, population, migration, urbanization, travel are all at record highs. So basically, putting a really high emphasis and burden on governments to actually serve citizens, or I should say serve citizens online. And basically, talking about the digital side of things, or the digital world, the traditional username, or majority of, is vulnerable, okay? And pretty soon, the level of the array of attacks out there, which is basically focused on one thing, stealing your identities, they're gonna soon outpace the innovation of passwords. So basically, public and also private enterprises really need to work together, share intelligence, and create an infrastructure whereas citizens, businesses, and also government entities can actually trust each other to conduct digital transactions. Why? Because getting into trouble online could be very costly. Conservative estimates is showing that the annual loss to cybercrime is around $300–400 billion per year. That number could be much higher because not every organization, public, private sector, report losses due to reputation damage, protection of IPs, and also adhering to security protocols. So basically, a lot of governments these days are actually turning to digital security, leveraging their existing infrastructure on e-government and also electronic identities to actually, solve a lot of these issues around security.
Thanks. Financial Intelligence Unit is a wing which is established by the government to basically look at economic crimes and especially get suspicious transactions from various players in the country. And based on these transactions, they do analysis and then nab the culprits, essentially to prevent money laundering, drug money, offences, smuggling, and various other crimes. So we would have some insights from our eminent panelists, and hopefully I think you would also have seen online fraud trend or online transactions being reported. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Krishnan. Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I'm really grateful to DSCI for organizing such kind of seminar, and I'm not going to give you any sort of pep talk, but certainly a few of the trends which are there in the internet frauds, which we are discovering day in and day out sitting in FIU, receiving from all corners of India. Would like to just make a distinction between the various types of frauds. We can categorize them into various particular functional centers. There are frauds which are perfectly online frauds, means some kind of emails or some kind of other internet medium is used to conduct such kind of fraud. At the very outset, I would like to make it very clear to you that today there is nothing of a specifically or uniquely internet-based fraud. There is always something physical which is always involved in such kind of frauds, because the initiation may be through some sort of medium like sending you emails or sending you an SMS, but later, the defrauding part and the financial transactions are always taken out in person or through the medium of banking channels or through the money transfer systems and so many other mediums. So one kind of frauds we are talking about is online fraud, which may pertain to some kind of prize money somebody has won, or insurance company, faking some kind of insurance company emails and sending you emails regarding that this is the money you have got from the insurance company, so claim it back. Similarly, there are other such kind of emails from various banks also, just to tell you that your credit card or debit card is going to expire. So we are going to kindly share some of the details. The emails will look just like as the email you get from State Bank of India or from some other nationalized bank or from the private banks. So this category, is hitting so many naive users as far as banking industry is concerned, and some of the persons who don't have such kind of education level. But you would be wondering that it's not only the uneducated one, but even one of the IIT professors, retired professor, he has been duped for more than 60 lakhs very recently on account of such kind of emails. So the second type of fraud which I'm going to tell you about, that is the credit card and debit card frauds. So this particular kind of fraud, it includes cloning of your credit card or debit card data, which you must be knowing about this term, data skimming and data theft. Out of these three kinds of elements which are involved with debit and credit card frauds, would like to tell you about the data in last 3 years. There has been a 6-fold increase in reporting of such incidents of credit card and debit card frauds in India. Then the third category pertains to cyber crime specifically, where some kind of hacking is done by some hackers into your systems and thereby stealing your data, and after stealing your private data, they use such kind of data for online transactions and defraud you financially. Fourth type, certainly most of the people nowadays are using more and more mobile phones for conducting various kinds of operations. There was a talk regarding some of the privacy issues which I heard about in the last presentation. But I'm not sure that how many of you are aware that most of the apps which we are using day in and day out most of our privacy is compromised almost every second. We are using those apps on day-to-day functions. You just Google relating to insurance right now, and within half an hour you'll get an email from n number of insurance companies. So we must know about the risks, and the people should know about the risks they are carrying in their pockets in the form of mobile phones. It's not only about your private information, but some of the apps where you store your passwords relating to your banking transactions, even those are remembered by the concerned apps for making your experience very, very good. But later your experiences may be turning sour very fast because your data is compromised day in and day out. So technology is always an enabler. Undoubtedly, we are using the fruits given by the technology, but certainly that comes with a pinch of salt. If we are not aware about the pitfalls, then certainly such kind of fraudsters are going to defraud us. And Mr. Triveni has already told about some international call center frauds. Would like to just tell you that there are specific call centers which are operating 24/7 in India, and they have been able to defraud internationally millions and millions of US dollars from the international clients. So as far as this credit goes to Indians, that they have been able to set up such call centers where they have defrauded customers sitting in Boston, sitting in California, or somewhere in the Europe. But unfortunately, there has been so many raids and there have been so many arrests by the law enforcement agencies, which is for good. And they could discover that these call centers are operating just like the professional call centers being run by some multinational company. So such things are happening as far as the internet frauds are concerned. There are few issues, if you permit, I would like to highlight. Sure. One thing is that, sitting in FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, because we get to see the complete picture. The ultimate aim of all these internet fraudsters is to earn money. I hope all of you agree. Because, once he has to earn money, he has to use some kind of channel for the transfer of value from the person who is a victim to the person who is going to gain by committing such kind of frauds. So somewhere or the other, the financial channels are involved at one stage or the other. To your delight, I would like to share you that in last 1 year, we have been able to close and freeze more than 13,000 bank accounts. I'm talking about 13,000 bank accounts which were used in various parts of India to defraud customers on the lines of some kind of internet frauds, some kind of telephonic frauds, some kind of email frauds, or credit card and debit card frauds. So the key to stop such kind of, or at least minimize the losses out of these frauds is sharing of information. Here private sector players are also available, government sector officers are also there. So higher the level of exchange between both of them, higher the rate of early detection of such kind of frauds, lesser will be the number of victims and lesser will be the amount of frauds in such kind of cases. So we really need to have some kind of systemic changes in the private sector as well as in the public sector domain, so that we can cater and give a better response to such kind of fraudsters in days to come. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kaushik. I think it's very, very useful insight, and that too the Indian context, because it's all hard facts, hard reportings from various players. Very interesting, again, aspect that you threw upon is the apps in the mobile. And it's like this, I had a very rugged old mobile and my daughter said, what kind of stupid instrument you're having? And she threw it at the ground. And then said, no apps are running on this. So but now we wonder, some archaic person here, so I need to then upgrade. So I upgraded my instruments, both the instruments, and put in the latest apps, and then you're left vulnerable. So that's the challenge we are, and there is no going back. We are already in the bandwagon, we've got to upgrade everything, and which means your risk is heightened and increased. So that's the typical kind of world that we live in, and there's no going back, which means you need to put in more controls, you need to be risk averse, you need to collaborate quickly. So as citizens, we need to complain, we need to be alert, we need to be vigilant, and we need to be active in kind of escalating the complaints to the police and the economic offense wing and the intelligence, and share data, of course. So that's the insight that I would share from the first round. Now I'll give the mic to Mr. Triveni Singh to give an insight on what kind of problems he faces and what are the things that he would suggest the industry to put in place or even citizens to put in place and what kind of constraints we have. So,
before answering the question about the challenges before the police department, first I would like to share my experiences. When we conducted raids over fake call centers in NCR area, we found that huge data related with insurance industry, bank industry, telecom industry, that was supposed to be confidential. It was in public domain. And we found the data. When we interrogated, how do you manage the data? Then they said us, there is a data vendors market, a black market, black cyber market, in which you can purchase any data related with any insurance industry, any bank. If you want details related with debit card, credit card, you can. Just simply you have to pay the money. If you want data related with insurance industry, you can have. It's on sales counter, you pay the money and you will get the data. Job sites, every major job sites, famous, be it Sign, be it Monster, be it Naukri.com, every data is in the market. I have seized this data, There are data vendors market. Unless and until we are going to check from cyber security angle, we are doing something. And it's the accountability of the corporate sector to keep the data secure. They cannot play with the data of the customers, It's secret data, how the data goes into the market. Recently, just 3-4 days back, I conducted a raid. We arrested 120 boys and girls. In that, a very famous insurance broker, equity broker, mutual fund broker, you may be familiar with SMC. The IT head of SMC, he had sold all the data of insurance industry. And in the name of insurance, in the name of bonus, they were selling this data, And the amount, you can imagine, 20 crore within 3 months, these fraudsters, they had managed to beguile the innocent people of India in the name of insurance, and they had collected 20 crore rupees. So this is the magnitude. And for the last 6 months, personally, I have seized the data related more than 100 crore rupees. So this cyber fraud industry, I think, you can imagine. Then what most surprising, there is a fraud supply chain network is operating here. If you want to buy a fake account, you can buy. You have to pay the premium. You don't have to open an account in bank. You will be given the company, fake company. You will be given the account. Suppose you want SIM, then there is premium. You have to pay. Generally, you have to pay 25 rupees, 50 rupees for a SIM. But when you are going to operate like this, like a fraudster, then you have to purchase some SIM in fake name, 600 rupees per SIM. You can easily purchase. For a cyber fraud, what kind of infrastructure you need? Phone number, bank account, these are fakes. PAN card, these are fakes. SIM card, even PRI lines, these are in fake names. And installed at fake addresses. Bank account, all these frauds. So fraudster think that if everything is fake, and I have outsourced these infrastructure services to some other vendors, they are free, they operate it, and they fly away. Every 15 days they open a new account in new bank. Suppose I am a fraudster, I have got an account in ICICI Bank, then after 10 days I will open a bank account in PNB. Then the next day I will open a bank account in. Since there is no central database of banking industry, so it's very difficult to track. It's very difficult. Who are these fraudsters, So is it, and the core issue behind that is KYC, know your customer. The RBI guidelines is so lax that anyone is going to branch manager, he is giving his address proof and identity proof. That is the information to open an account. So they create a fake ID. They create a fake address, or some rent out a flat for 15 months and 1 month. You go and submit to the bank. You get an account, and you start doing whatever you want to do. So there are certain challenges before the police. When we face this problem, recently we have seen there is rise in spoofing cases. Spoofing cases like call spoofing. I mean, somebody is calling your number from anyone's number you want. There are so many spoofing tools. Mail spoofing. They spoof the mail. They can send to anyone by anyone's mail ID, you know. SMS spoofing. They are sending SMS. You think that this SMS is coming from my pen. Actually, it's coming from a fraudster. Because these kind of services, when we try to investigate this, then we find that the server is located somewhere in foreign country. So it's very difficult to get the data. Even if the server is located outside country, like Gmail, like Yahoo, like Facebook, it's very difficult for me to get the data in real time because there is a MLA treaty. And recently, just 2 days back, it was news in newspaper that on an average, even CBI gets data from US or foreign country through MLA treaty in a 40 months. If to investigate a case, if you are getting the required data and that time period is 40 months, then what can you think about the investigation? This is the cyber race. The crime is being committed at the speed of thought. Then we need to have the data at the speed of thought as well to investigate the crime. These are the problems, you know. Then IP spoofing, then MAC spoofing. We police officer, how we investigate the case? To establish that someone has committed a crime from this computer, we need 2 data, IP address, MAC ID. There are spoofing tools. You can spoof the IP, you can spoof the MAC address. Suppose the criminal has not spoofed this data. They have not spoofed the mail ID, they have not spoofed the IP or MAC ID. Then the problem is that when you ask the telecom operator, ISP, provide this data, there is no backend support. Either they do not have the expertise or they do not have the technical people to handle this data. The problem is that they store the data. The problem before is that they are not supplying data because they don't have the expertise to provide us the data. So these are the problems. My suggestion is that there has to be focus, stringent focus over KYC. Without KYC, stringent KYC, no should be allowed to purchase a SIM, no should be allowed to open a bank account, no should be allowed to open a website, you know. What is happening in, suppose you want to create a fake website, you just go to GoDaddy, pay 399 rupees, you have got a domain. And in the domain, administrative, there is a provision, administrative contact number and technical contact number. So what addresses you are giving? Triveni Singh, Delhi. This is the address, Triveni Singh, Delhi. And what is the mobile number? 99999. Any mobile number you feed, any address you feed, that will be accepted. These are the challenges. So when there is a case of fake website address and we start investigating, the problem is that when you run who is, then the address is Triveni Singh, Delhi. Can you locate Triveni Singh in Delhi? Can you locate our number 9999999? This is fake address. There has to be some focus, some stringent norms, some regulatory mechanism to ensure that KYC must be ensured at all costs. Thank you.
That's again a very interesting phenomena wherein we come back to the root wherein we need to, at the inception, fix things. But interestingly, when KYC is bought, 2,500 rupees you can get your KYC done. So that's the kind of challenge I'm running. And in fact, you know, we do KYC verification. So I spend another 250 rupees to verify every KYC. But that's useful. At least at the end of the day, my field investigator goes, checks the person exists, photograph is same person, and the address exists, and the other details are same. So I think very useful information you've given. So I think it goes back. So if you have your gates strong, and then you definitely ensure a better qualitative business. But the kind of top line rush, the business rush, and as it is, there is so much of recession, the companies are sales hungry, you land in trouble in the long run or in the medium run. And that's what is the vicious cycle. And chief risk officers like me are combating these challenges. Interesting. What is the trend in APAC region? Is it same, or you are similar thoughts being echoed in China or in other parts, and how technology can be used to curb this?
Yeah, I think just to kind of echo some of the other speakers, in terms of global trends, and also which probably resonates down to the APAC trends, and also locally here. Basically, within the last year, 2015 hasn't been a very good year for data security breaches on the internet. Basically, give you some ideas that may resonate with the audience. In the U.S., as an example, the insurance giant Anthem, they lost 80 million identities online. That's from the private sector, but it has everything to do with government because all the PII, the personally identifiable information obtained, obviously could be reused to submit fraudulent tax returns, register, enroll for national IDs, employee IDs, and so on and so forth. Staying on the U.S. side of things is another interesting case. I think now in counting around 25 million identities lost with the U.S. OPM, which is the Office Personnel Management of active and also inactive federal employees and contractors. And interestingly, evidently, even the people actually act as personal references for those federal staff and contractors, their data was compromised together with active troops and also DoD staff, Department of Defense. Similar case also happened in Turkey. National identities, 50 million identities compromised and some shared with third parties. I think I can, the list goes on. I could probably recite from now to Sunday, but some of the other past big data security breaches, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Target, 70 million identities, customer identities compromised, 40 million credit cards information. You have Epsilon, which is a global marketing firm with Fortune 500 companies, customer data stolen. That particular breach is estimated to be anywhere from 100 million to 4 billion, of course, together with Sony Universal Pictures, and so on and so forth. I do want to address a cybercrime that's probably would resonate everywhere, globally, regionally, here in India, is probably fraudulent tax returns. So basically with the PII, people can actually utilize, for example, the social security number, name, date of birth to obviously falsify the tax returns. I think as to your point as to what are some of the technology trends going forward, what we see from the industry as a solution provider on a secure identification solutions side of things is we see a lot of governments combining both physical and digital security technologies to form a much stronger identity credential in a way to form this trusted identity, right? This trusted identity then can be reused across multiple different applications, whether it's government or whether it's private alike. There's a lot of organizations, international, regional, which is articulating, evangelizing this. I'll give you an example of EID, national ID, which is electronic national ID. I currently reside in Hong Kong. I'm a resident. I have a national ID card. And interesting data points, I can actually go to a certificate authority in Hong Kong, which happens to be the post office. I can go there. I could pay an annual fee to have a digital certificate stored on my national ID, electronic EID card. And with that, and with a purchased card reader, I can actually perform secure transactions with the government online 24/7. And from a government perspective, they save a lot of money. They improve process efficiency. They can get the services to the government very quickly. That's a technology trend. The UK cabinet had an interesting study. They said that a digital transaction on the average is 20% cheaper, lower than email transaction, 30% lower than phone transaction, and 50% lower than in-person transaction. That is that's a magnificent saving. But from a citizen perspective, it's time. Even I live in Hong Kong. It's half the world's population now actually live in the cities. I mean, urbanization. So governments really need to supplement the traditional man services, telephoning services, counter services with e-government services. And basically, it's the time to service that citizens obviously have obviously could benefit from. So from my perspective, or from the Entrust data card perspective, we see, convergence of physical digital security technology to create a single credential as a technology trend going forward. Think of it as a chainmail. You're at a point of sell transaction, somebody's actually getting the benefits, electronic benefits online, a light goes green. Do you trust that digital transaction, whether it's legitimate or not, it's nice to also have physical security to kind of offset the digital security side of things as well.
Thanks. That's a very useful perspective. So basically looking at a stronger digital identity with the use of technology. I think the other case that comes to my mind is the Anthem's case, the Blue Cross insurance company in the US. They lost billions of customers' data, including the credit card numbers. And the CEO had to personally apologize to each customer, sending a mail saying even my own data is compromised. And I'm extremely sorry. And of course, he got the FBI immediately to investigate. A very, very sophisticated attack because they're extremely secure, risk-averse, and conservative company. So imagine even that kind of company getting hit by a data breach. So that's the kind of times that we live in, and it's quite frightening. My next question is to Mr. Kaushik. With these challenges, do you see any policy level change? I believe even in Aadhaar, when we do e-KYC check, there are two types of Aadhaar. The one Aadhaar which is a more trustworthy, and then there's a lighter version of the Aadhaar. So do you see any policy level change coming in, or what are the changes that you look at?
Mr. Triveni has very rightly put up some of the challenges before law enforcement agencies. Being a police officer, I can well appreciate those things. But at the same time, we have to review the situation time to time. If you count the situation maybe 15 years back, how difficult it was to open a bank account. And being on the other sides of the fence, when we are a normal customer, go to the bank and they refuse us opening up accounts or refuse somebody's account opening, it pinches a lot. We used to cry foul, we used to cry red tapeism and everything of such sorts. When we are on the other side of fence, when we are a law enforcement agencies, we could see that how difficult it is to monitor such kind of large numbers which are coming in the form of new bank accounts. So, but Mr. Triveni and all police officers who are sitting here would like to tell them that this is a reality and we have to live with it. There are no reverses possible. But at the same time, the KYC norms, know your client norms, those are becoming day by day, they are becoming, as Mr. Triveni is saying, lax. But at the same time, we are trying to infuse some kind of, unique identities in those kind of accounts if the thresholds or the account transactions are beyond a particular limit. So it's not a major worry as a law enforcement agency. And plus, getting information from the central bank registry or some sort of issues, if you are facing, then from FIU side, I can assure you that we cannot provide you information at the speed of light, that I cannot assure you. But certainly within a genuine period of time, with a practical period of time, we can provide you the information which is residing in India. But even if you require some kind of information relating to your investigation through from the international banking arena, again you are most, you can send your request to us. We'll definitely process those requests in the minimum period of time so that your investigation doesn't suffer. One more issue I would like to point out that it's not only about the fake or fake bank accounts which is triggering us. There is another problem that is of account loaning. You have a proper account with proper KYC, but if somebody comes to such an extent that he loans his account to some fraudster, what will you do? There are n number of examples. I talked to you regarding the 13,000 accounts having been closed in last 1 year. Those accounts, most of the accounts, 70 or 80% of those accounts were of genuine customers. They are sitting somewhere in the northeast, they are sitting in some areas, interior areas of UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, and they are loaning their accounts to the fraudster for a petty sum of 1,000 rupees per month. Fraudsters are using their accounts, and once the money is pooled, they transfer it or take it out through the ATMs, and those accounts are just left like that for the investigators like Mr. Triveni Singh to investigate. And he will finally catch somebody sitting in UP and he will say, I don't know anything about it. So these are the major challenges certainly we need to get across. More and more information we pass on to the customers, not to indulge in such kind of activities. The stronger the message we give from the side of law enforcement agencies to the people at large, that do not loan your account for any such kind of activity because these are being used or misused by them for defrauding others. So a lot of connect is required between the law enforcement agencies and public at large. Lot of information channels have to be, broken down. Even the private sector has a lot of roles to play as far as dissemination of such kind of information to the public at large is concerned. Still, the lack of awareness among the common customers, among the common bankers is extremely, extremely low.
Thanks a lot. In fact, what I was talking about Aadhaar card is there are Aadhaar cards with 1 and the year, because the age proof submitted during the Aadhaar card preparation is a non-standard age proof. So if you look at Aadhaar card with 1 and the year, slightly suspicious, not necessarily fraudulent. So that's all. So it's really, really intriguing. More and more you get into insights like this, and more you need to catch up. And as you heard in the morning session, the fraudsters are much ahead in terms of technology, processes, intelligence, speed. So that's the problem that we face. But all this calls for better cooperation, more vigilance, more alertness from everybody here. So it's the individual, the corporate, and I think we get back to faster vigilance, faster alert, then we save. So we have some 8 minutes left for questions. So I thought a lot of hands went up. So I think first question to the gentleman who's come up to the mic.
My name is Anuj Agrawal. I am from Computer Society of India. As Dr. Triveni Singh talked about data being sold into the market, say especially from the brokers, and there is a mechanism in the law, section 43A and 72, which talks about the hefty fine and even the imprisonment. But what is the mechanism to enforce that? Is there any audit or something, or have something? On its own, they will not, the industry or the private players or anybody will not enforce it. So kindly suggest something, and maybe we have a lot of people from CBI and police to have some kind of a mechanism presented to that. Thank you.
In our case, in which we conducted it over fake call centers and we got the data, that is a criminal case. Law is going to take its own course. They will be penalized definitely. We are going to call them. And we are going to ask them what was the basic cyber security mechanism to ensure their data. If they have failed in their due diligence, definitely action will be taken against them. Another recourse is under 43A. Suppose only contravention is there, not criminal case, then of course you can go to the adjudicating authority. By virtue of post, Principal Secretary Information Technology is adjudicating authority of the state. You can go file your case and definitely you will get the civil remedies. Thank you.
Other than that, the corporate side, we do a lot of data leakage preventions and data leakage audit also. And whenever we find cases where somebody is selling the database, no, it is. As he said in the IT Act, there is a act. I agree. I think very valid question, very right question. What he's trying to tell you is there is an act, there is a law, and therefore if the corporate breaches the data, corporate is at fault. I have to put in reasonable security practices in place. So if I come to know that my data is breached, I have to take action. I cannot sit idle. So I have to get into act, get into police complaint, get into investigation, and that's what we do. And I guess citizens also need to be alert. If you get a question from some caller saying, this is Sundar Krishnan, I have your data, you need to ask him, where did you get this data from? I think we voluntarily surrender to the telecaller and give as much data as we like. As a community, Indian community is the most social community in the world. We share data easily, we get emotional and we get carried away. So, that's why the spurious calling is also very effective in the country. So more and more we get privacy conscious, our rights conscious, take action, be alert, better it would be. And in fact, we do lots of SMS campaign, internet campaign saying don't listen to spurious calls. So similarly, I guess banks are doing, other companies are doing. I guess it's coming in, we're all there, but it is frightening scenario. And the question now that you raised is very, very valid. You want to add something? Any other question? Yeah. Please come up with the mic. Yeah.
Fine. So my question is in continuation of the question actually which he asked. There was a word used, due diligence. Now as far as my understanding of the law goes, this word has not been explicated in the law with due care and attention, in a way, because what is it? Again, this is a very gray area. I don't know in whose vested interest it has been left like that, to be very, very blunt. Now the thing is, this is an area where we need to explicate what are the access controls which any corporate entity or any entity for that matter should have, what should be those norms, what should be those practices. This again has not been defined, sir.
Yeah. I think there is also IT rules. So rules actually try to explain that, but yes, you're right. It's not, but it can't be so specific also.
It is not at all specific, sir. It is just a word, due diligence.
Yeah, one minute.
This, I would like to, very rightly you told, but this word itself, that is used very, very perfectly in the international scenario also, this due diligence. When we talk about industry as a finance industry, there is another word which is enhanced due diligence, right? So due diligence, if we keep on defining these terms in very, very stricter terms, it will lead to chaos. Chaos in the sense means as a law enforcement agency, you may, go to the Reliance and catch up with some of the guy, maybe the managing director or someone, that you have not, pursued due diligence. So it's a very, very, some kind of a relative term. Something may be very, very stricter for you. Something may be not good for the industry as a standard at the international level. So that's why I think these terms have been used to define it in the international sense, but we cannot be so specific as far as these things are concerned.
To add to what, very interesting insight that he has given, to add to what he said, in the enforcement side, what happens is we face regulatory inspections. And I know of one of my friendly company which underwent an inspection, and in that inspection report, they were very, very clear that you haven't done penetration testing that you need to do on the website, and it was raised by the inspector of the bank. So the due diligence, if it's failing or inadequate, it's taken care of by the regulatory inspections. I think so. What I'm trying to tell you is the BFSI sector, which faces 60% of the attacks, actually is very strictly enforced. But the non-BFSI sectors are an issue. So if enforcement is stepped up, then of course you would have a. At the same time, you can't just rely only on enforcement. As citizens, we also need to be alert. And that's the point that I was trying to bring in. So, you wanted to add something?
There is a provision 43A in Information Technology Act in 2009. And the provision is, suppose as a body corporate, you are having the database related with personally identifiable information or sensitive personal data, SPD, then you should have a reasonable security practices. And that reasonable security practices, either it will be notified by the central government, which has not been as yet done, then you will have to follow ISO 27001. And that ISO 27001 consists of, in my knowledge, 136 parameters, And that's why whosoever corporate, they are keeping the database of, sensitive database of their customer, they have to follow the ISO 27001. But I have seen during my investigation, during my raids, that they have got the certificate to ISO 27001. And this ISO 27001 and PCI DSS, this certification are on sale. You can go to the market, pay 20,000 rupees. I am not telling that every corporate is doing, but there are so many corporates. They are involved into malpractices just for compliance sake. Since this is regulatory requirements, that's why for compliance sake you are purchasing this certificate. You are saying I am ISO 27001 and PCI DSS compliant. If this is the situation, then what can you imagine? Thank you.
Very rightly pointed out that private sector players, they try to evade such kind of practices or innovate on these counts to reduce the compliance costs. They do the minimum, but fortunately, from the regulatory side, when inspections.
Sir, in this ISO 27000, you put it into part of the audit, the statutory audit. Make it very simple, because then it will become legally binding. just put this whole thing into the statutory audit.
No, the point he's saying is that even if it is statutory, it's bought. It's compromised. So
27,001 is not statutory at all. This is voluntary. and
that's
private.
agreed.
Make it statutory.
I would
make
like to
part of the
clear it.
term.
I would listen. I would like to clear it. This is the statutory provision. It's in law. It's enforceable. The problem is that since India government is still not notified its own practices, related with reasonable security practices. That's why till then you have to follow best practices or ISO 27001. ISO 27001 is not mandatory as such. But you have to show, again, I told you, you have to show that I have done the due diligence. What is your due diligence? If related with some information security, then what is your due diligence? You have to follow some best practices. And what is best practices? If you haven't devised as yet on your own, then you have to follow ISO 27001. That's it's legal.
Yeah, I think any more question? I think quickly, there are two. I think we'll take two more. So then, yeah.
So this
Last
is
two questions.
So I'm Jaimini from CA Technologies. So one question for Mr. Kaushik. You mentioned the 13,000 bank accounts were carrying out fraud. So how did you actually go about finding that these have done fraud? So was it based on a complaint or was it based on some analysis that you did?
These frauds have some kind of patterns which are there in the financial world. If some fraudster is sitting here and is collecting money from all over India, so there are indicators which indicate such kind of bank accounts which are getting credits from various parts of India within a particular span of time. On the basis of such kind of filters, we come out or cull out some of those accounts in almost all banks in the complete banking industry. And then we make some kind of random checks, and when those accounts are freezed or closed prematurely, there are no complaints, there are no further complaints from the side of the customer or in whose name the account is there. So that is a clear-cut indication that this account is being used by the fraudsters. So such kind of mechanism are day in and day out, 24/7, these are operational. On the basis of that, we call out such accounts and take actions against them.
So you have an automated system or is it manual?
I think the details which I have shared with you is enough.
We can do it offline. Last question.
Last question. Ashish Mukherjee, Wipro, BPO actually. Two questions, two parts rather. One is if you have allegations against your employee misusing the card of somebody who's settled in US, UK, France, whatever, what are the provisions of Indian law to deal with it? That's number one. Number two, if you have any kind of concerns raised by the client who's sitting in US, UK, wherever, that their customers are getting, their end customers, let's say the telecom operator, the telephone holder is getting calls from India asking for money, something like the call centers that were referred by Manoj. What provisions are there for us to help out our client? Legal.
Relating to cards which are being used in US, UK or some international jurisdiction.
Used in India or elsewhere, but the card holder is US, UK.
I'm not clear.
Okay, so I process somebody's bill payment. I get the card data sitting in India, being an authorized call center of a telecom company, and then that character who's taken the card data goes and buys a Pizza Hut pizza.
Credit card. Issued abroad and used in India. Used in India.
You have so many such cases. You have got, Kingfisher.
No, I'm just asking for the clarification that credit cards which are issued in US and being used in India, you're talking about those cards?
Is issued in, let's say, US.
Okay.
Is issued to a US citizen by a US bank. Is used for paying a bill in US. The card data, CVV, expiry, all those data is available to the individual sitting here. And the guy goes onto a portal, uses it for buying a, let's say, ticket to She Sells.
Okay, got it. So, if it is being done in Indian jurisdiction, allegation, if any such sort of allegation is there, you can always approach even FIU or law enforcement agency concerned and give them such kind of details that this is being used. Because it is a matter of investigation further to see that whether this is compromised, whether this is misused or something of that sort. Immediate action which can be taken is that you can put a freeze on the transactions of such particular card, so that further funds are not defrauded by some kind of person.
That is not in our hands. That the bank will do it, or the customer will request the bank to do it. But my point is that from our side, when we had gone to the police, the CBI in Delhi, there is one here in central Delhi. So they said, no, we only deal with major things. We don't deal with individual one-odd cases. You go to the police, local police station and give it. Local police station has no idea how to deal with it.
Sir, law is very simple. If network of your country, I mean India, net communication device or computer or any network is being used either by someone who is located outside India or within India, it will be treated as crime committed in India. Clear? Now, the second question is jurisdiction. Suppose you feel the crime and you are the victim, you don't be confused with cybercrime cells, cybercrime police station and all, CBI and all that. You just go to your police station. You are empowered to go to police station under 154 CRPC, and the inspector, SHO, is bound to lodge your crime if that is a criminal case. That's all. Clear?
Yeah, so the thing is, you can complain and then you need to be alert. So I think we're close to 5 minutes more than that. So, but I think if I'll be failing in my duty if I do not thank this eminent panel. A lot of white hair, no hair, or even the sort of dyed hair here. So I think we've been extremely fortunate to have people who can share us insights, add insights, real insights in data to us. I think we'll be very, very fortunate. Please thank them with a loud applause for sharing their valuable time and sparing the valuable time here. And I think a very excellent audience. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank our panelists for conducting this session so well. And thank you.